Today's August 6th, 2020. Jeff and Brandon just came from the hardware store picking up what they need to make their observatory.
Now we just went to the hardware store and the wood yard, bought a bunch of materials, not all of which, Vanessa, is for this project. I'll set this aside.
Here's Brandon.
What we're going to be doing is, from scratch, we're going to be building a portable observatory based on the faceted plan that we've already demonstrated in a previous video in this stream. So we've had to get some hardware and we've had to get some wood material. So bill of materials basically is everything we can think of this pass to put together the prototype of the observatory. And then we're going to set it up. Wind conditions are pretty strong. We're going to see if it gets knocked down, if it huffs and puffs and blows our observatory down. And then we're going to strengthen and finalize the design and the construction in such a way that it can be a more or less permanent fixture in which you can actually store a telescope and then open up for use for astronomy without having to cart a whole bunch of equipment out to it all the time, which is what we currently have to do if we want to use a large telescope. So Brendan and I are going to start unloading it, and you can follow along. Necessarily, there's going to be a lot of hardware involved. These plates are going to be bendable so we can change the angle of the various facets of the observatory wall in order to hold the whole thing together. There's going to be a minimal amount of superstructure with this thing, but we have to make sure we have enough that it can withstand some fairly high winds that we experience here in the John Day Valley. And of course, you got to have lots and lots of wood screws, which ultimately will be replaced so that you can make the observatory portable. But for the time being, we're just going to use wood screws to hold everything together. It's a 1/2 inch by 1.5 inch, I would say, Brandon, board. This is really going to be used as part of the foundation. Because, as Brandon's going to demonstrate, he's going to grab one. That's the foundation board. He's going to grab a 1x6 to go along with this 3/4 by 1.5. And what's going to basically happen is this board here is going to be attached to this one. And there's going to be another one of these 1x6s on the other side. And then the walls of the portable observatory are going to drop down into this slot to hold it firmly in place, depending upon the shape of the design we finalize. And now we can take that in here. Typically when you construct something made of wood, you use 2x4s as or even 2x6s as the framing structure. But we want this to be really light. So we opted for 2x2. So this is going to be basically the frame around which the other materials are going to go that form the walls and the roof. 2x2s. Here you go. I'll get some more. Now this next sheet here is basically the size of a piece of plywood. It's what is known as a T111 board. It's meant to be aesthetically appealing as well as structurally sound. So what we're going to end up doing with this is we're going to end up cutting them right in half. So you'll have two 4x4 squares. Each of these squares is going to fit into that slotty thing that I explained later with a 1x6 to 1x6, and there's going to be a gap in between. With this, down here is going to drop into it. It's going to be cut in half, so it's only going to be 4 feet high, but there's going to be 6 of them in the shape of a hexagon to form the walls of the observatory. Now you've got to have 3 of these sheets to make a hexagon. But the architecture design could be up to an octagon. But that's for a very large telescope. For the telescope that we have available to us, even a pentagon might be a large enough shape to store the mount and telescope. Now this is standard plywood. It's not very nice, appearance-wise, and it will probably have to have a surface coat or paint or stain on the top of it, maybe even a thin plastic veneer when it's done. but it's going to form the roof. And it's very thin. It's 3/8 inch 4x8 plywood. The idea being is it'll be cut into a triangle, 6 feet high. A perfect equilateral type triangle like this, right? That will form the roof, and it will bend at an angle like this, and the angle will be based on the number of facets or baseboards that we decide on. And we're going to do, to begin with, a pentagon and expand it to a hexagon as we go through this project. Oh, you know we need one of those for the...
Yeah, we do need one out.
Yep, we're going to cut it. We're actually going to cut a triangle today. And then we're going to use the triangle we cut for a roof section as a prototype for all the other triangles. Maybe we should use the worst piece of wood for that. Let's see if we can find a bad one. What do you think?
That's usually a good idea. Yeah, we got some.
Because, you know, our cutting skills are rather limited. It was the one that didn't. You know, I think we should do the one that didn't. Yeah, that's this one here.
That's this one?
Yeah, see if we
Okay.
got that. Okay, so we have a pile of material here that'll either be the roof or it'll be the walls. We've got a pile of material over there that's going to form the superstructure over there. 1x and 2x. We left out over here 2 boards, one of which is going to be cut into a triangle, 6 feet tall, and the other is going to be cut in half to form the walls. So the rest of our project today is basically going to be to do a little cutting. I don't think we're going to do much more than just do one facet today, but we want to begin the process of building the observatory. You know why? Because the moon's going out of the picture now. And if we can get this thing to work, we can do some fine astro in the next few days as the moon wanes towards new moon status and the lunacy passes. Okay, so right now, Brandon is doing precision measurements because the triangular roof sections are going to prove to be the most challenging cut that we're going to have to do, right, Brandon?
Yeah, and with these 4x8s, they come up short sometimes. So I took the 2-foot mark and I made the 2-foot mark on this side, and then I took the 2-foot mark and I made it on this side. So then I go right in between.
Oh, brilliant, brilliant.
Since it's usually it's that 1/16 of an inch off, so you can't go exactly 2 feet on either side.
Right, you shouldn't have just measured from one side. You measured from both and cut right down the middle. Perfect.
Exactly.
Now we got to get this triangle is going to be so it'll support up to 8 sides. The roof will have to have an angle that's sufficient for up to 8 sides, right? So it has to be a 6-foot tall triangle. So we're going to have to do this, run a line, I guess, 6 feet long up, right? And mark a spot. And then we're going to have to do the same thing from both sides to find out where, when you cut this thing, you have to come to a stop.
Yeah.
This is by far the most critical operation because if there's too much of irregularity in the shape of this triangle, it's not going to mate up very well with the other triangles that form the roof. And like I said, we want this thing to be anything from pentagonal, which means have 5 roof sections, to as many as 8. And that's why the dimensions have been set up the way they are, so that we can build an observatory that suits whatever telescope we happen to want to use. And anybody out there who wants to do a project like this, sorry, let me get this on here again, will get enough information from what we're doing so you can build your own. And of course there's a possibility that if somebody doesn't want to build their own, that someone like Brandon, who loves working with his hands and not playing keys and jazz guitar, might be able to build the materials for you or fabricate them. So we'll see how that plays out. He's got a little stretch line there, and he's going to snap it. He's going to put a line on the wood.
Yeah, there's my 6-foot mark right there.
Yep, and now we got to just find the very middle of that 6 foot, right? Just like you did at the base. And then draw a line.
We're taking from the corners. So we're going from the corners up to right there.
No, we're going to use this as the base.
Oh, okay.
Now you could conceivably,
but-
you could conceivably just cut that section out now if you wanted to.
That's kind of what I was thinking. That way I have this as just raw material
Yeah.
right here.
And then when we cut the triangle, it'll just terminate at whatever point is right in the middle.
Exactly.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, now what Brandon's going to do is, remember we talked about that being the triangle for the roof. This is going to be the wall. And the walls are going to be 4 by 4, roughly. But whatever you do, you want to cut this 4 by 8 in a perfect half. So he's going to have
cutting that in perfect half. Flip that over so I have a smooth surface to work on.
Okay. Oh yeah, look at the back side of it. It looks like plywood to me.
Yeah, it's a lot better to cut than it is on the other side there.
See, there's your expertise.
We got that 4 foot right there. Double check and make sure it's 4 foot this way.
And then cut right between the two of them, just like you did before, right?
Yeah.
You want me to hold it?
Oh, we're all right. I got it.
Okay.
All right, we're good on that one. They actually made 4 foot on this one.
Okay. So just
It's
cut
always
it.
the width. Yeah.
And the snap line. Here.
Yeah, we're coming from this side. I don't have an edge on that side.
Oh, okay. Brandon's feeling a little snappish here. Okay, this is going to be the T111 cut. It's going to be very straightforward. All we're doing is cutting a 4 by 8 in half into 2 4-foot squares. And fortunately, the height of the bed and the height of this chair is such that it makes a natural sawhorse for us.
It is nice having that elevation right there. It's a little teetery when you're cutting it in half.
Voila, a wall.
Yeah, you got one of the walls right there.
And the pretty side goes out, obviously. And the ugly side's in, but it's dark, so who cares?
Yeah, got that nice thick material though. There's your
Yeah.
wall right there.
And then all we got to do is build the footers down below. We'll do that, but hopefully we can get that done before today's done, right? Those footers? Wouldn't that be cool? Excellent. So Brandon's got the first cut. He's all warmed up now because the real challenge is going to be
Oh, this wonderful triangle.
the wonderful triangle cut. And you've decided you're going to start by cutting that 2 by 4 section, 2 foot by 4 section off first, right?
Yeah.
And then that will form the tip. But you know what I would recommend we do? Let's measure it one more time, okay? What do you think? Let's put that tape measure on it one more time. Because this is really the most precise operation.
There's our 6 feet right there.
Right to the chalk line, right?
Yep. And there's our 2 feet.
All right, let's do it.
There.
It sure is nice that when they fabricate these plywood materials that they actually do a pretty good job of dimensioning. Yeah, looks good.
It's right on that one.
Looks a little on the inside, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
going to matter.
Yeah, it's that's why I have that line right there. If I fall on this line, and it'll go right on that.
Okay, here we go. And
This one we can actually bump up. Need the chair on that one. That's just gonna fall off.
okay. Okay, now the next stage is to get a perfect measurement of the apex. The apex of this triangle is going to be precisely in the middle of this board because it's already 6 foot tall. By the way, how did it feel handling it? Did it seem very heavy?
No, it's just not too heavy.
And
it's got a little weight behind it, but it's fairly light considering.
But then it's going to be only half the weight because half of it's going to fall away as another set of triangles, right?
Yep.
So,
yeah, this will be fairly light material for the roof.
and whether we hinge it or just manually remove it, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
As long as it'll seal out the rain.
That's the important part. Keep the equipment dry.
Yeah.
Alright, so yeah, I made my 2 marks there for the 2 foot and the 2 foot, and I put a line right
here's
between.
his real challenge. He's got to end up right there on the end of the cut, and he has to begin right here on the very corner at the beginning of the cut.
That's why we like our chalk lines.
That's sad.
There we go. Now there's chalk on there.
Okay, I think I got my corner.
You're on your
You want to
corner?
snap it? Okay, we're just going to do one at a time. Yeah, try not to, you have to lift it pretty high. I better hold it a little firmer. Hold on. Okay, give it a shot. Ah, there we go. That felt good.
That's better.
All right.
That looks good. I like that line.
There's our triangle.
I got it.
And that's going to be a roof. Tailgate didn't quite accommodate this. We decided to put it on this little luncheon table we had out back. And as long as this line does not intersect it, it can go a little further over.
Yeah, we got a little ways.
Right about there. And we're going to probably want to put some weight on this thing. So, here we go. Now this is going to be super critical. We could easily damage an edge if it's not well supported by me. He could easily miscut the line so that it's too far in or out or have an angle to it.
I want to come back this way.
Start on this side.
Yeah, because I don't want to start on that edge.
Got it. Okay.
I like that better.
If we've done a really good job of this, we're going to put this right triangle up against this, and you're going to see that it's square. All right? And then he's going to flip it around, and you'll see that potentially these remnants that we're coming up with here could possibly be used either as templates for cutting or as one of the roof sections if we could find a way to join them together. Mm-hmm. Now here's where a little bit of damage was done, and it's unavoidable right at the tip because you got such a small area there to start cutting at. All right, and this was at the very end of the board. That wasn't
the very end.
There was, yeah.
It's the way that plywood's all pressed together.
Yep.
It's just that thin.
So
material.
all we would do is if we wanted to use this as part of the roof is we would have to get some wood glue and glue it together and use like a clinch to hold it together until it dried. Mm-hmm. Now, when we're done, hopefully we'll be able to use this section for a roof or these sections for the initial roof and then have a template in one of these. Mm-hmm. But let's just get the first one done, right?
Yeah.
Start small. Start small, takes baby steps.
Hey, it's working in that direction, though.
Yeah, and your skill set's bound to improve, even though you're already well past the journey stage of woodworking, right?
Yeah, a little bit past that, but yeah, nothing's but constant improvement every day.
I assure you, I could have wasted all this material. Brandon's lining up the next cut. You can see we've shifted to the other side of the table. He knows the apex of the triangle is going to be the most critical component. And I'm going to go and hold the board, and you've already seen how it's done. so now we have not an equilateral, I think it's called an isosceles triangle, where you basically put it down the middle and it's symmetrical.
Yeah.
You can see the tip. That is beautiful. I was worried about that. You can see a little bit of damage at the end as you try to exit with the saw on both sides, but that's why we got framing material. And you can see the remnant also forms a triangle. So now we're going to go ahead and lay that over the top of this and see if they map. If they match really well, then we have the possibility of actually being able to pull this project off, because triangles aren't easy.
With minimal material too.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that matches up. It looks like flawlessly.
But it's a little far off down here. There's like an eighth of an inch. Here, I'm gonna square up these the bases. Hold on, that's too far now. Push it back towards me, okay? Okay, so how's it looking at the tips?
Very minimal. It's over the edge.
Okay,
right there.
and this one's a little further back.
So, I mean, if anything, we push it that way, we can cut an eighth of an inch off the bottom.
Now, how we handle this superstructure, the framing is going to be a key thing too, and we have no idea how we're going to do that yet.
Hey, baby steps.
Baby
We're
steps.
working that direction.
Hey, when you're doing exploratory work, prototyping, that's what you do. So, you don't have to use your imagination too much anymore. You can see how this is going to work. This is a wall. It's T111 wood. It's got a 3/8 inch plywood roof. It's mounted as a triangle as a roof. The telescope will sit aside, the mount will sit aside, and the telescope will be able to poke out, if necessary, through this when it's removed. We still have to work out the question of how we want to attach everything and the superstructure, but as long as we got enthusiasm for the project, hey, we might even bring it home.
Always got enthusiasm.
Has our confidence level gone up since we did this?
Absolutely. We have more of a picture now.
Yeah, and we actually cut a pretty decent triangle.
Yeah, not too bad, am I?
Okay, so right now Brandon is measuring 4-foot sections of the 1x6. The purpose of the 1x6, as we'll demonstrate later, is to act as the foundation boards by creating a sandwich with the T111 boards that are the walls. So the T111 boards will fall into a lip between two of these, and the gap between the two sets will basically be established by this, what is this, like 3/4, 5/8?
Yeah, 3/4. Yeah,
okay.
1 by 3/4 I think it was.
All right, and so now we're working on the basic foundation for the portable observatory. Okay, so the lumberyard gave us a little bit longer than 8-foot sections, much better than a little bit shorter. But it does mean that we have to cut away, how much there did you measure off?
1/8 of an inch.
Just an 1/8 of an inch on this particular board. Now he's cutting 4-foot sections out of the 1.5 by 3/4 inch framing boards. And this will be the toe boards that will support the T111 in the sandwich that will be made up of the 1x6s and the T111 walls. The goal here is to make all these corners square and these boards flush. Now, we got short enough screws so that when he screws them in, they're not going to go through to the third board. We're just going to flip it over and put some screws to the other side. And because he's smart about doing this, we're going to put the other side of the board, even though it's not going to be used, into the far side so he has a nice planar surface to screw against.
So
Okay,
you want to
Brent?
make sure that everything's all squared up, but the way I start things is I get the screws started first and then I worry about squaring them up.
Okay, now there is a danger of screwing too close to the edge, right?
There is a danger. If you're screwing too close to the edge and you don't pile it, you'll crack the board.
Okay, so we're at least an inch, we're about an inch here and more than 2 inches here, so that's fine. How many screws do you anticipate putting in here?
1, 2, 3, probably 4 for security.
For a start.
Yeah.
Okay, if we need more later on, we can always redo it.
I might be able to get away with 3, but 4 is just, it looks like a...
Okay, we can get a crack. Excellent. Now notice we're doing this...
I'm going to use 3. I'm going to use 3.
Okay, notice we're doing this with wood screws. Ultimately, we want to be able to pull these wood screws out. Never do it with nails, by the way.
No.
Nails are terrible. But we want to be able to pull these wood screws out and then drill holes and to make this thing portable. Although this part, actually, of the observatory can remain as a single unit for portability. So we may never have to actually replace it with thumb screw type fasteners.
Yeah, this we probably won't.
This we won't have to. We may decide to add a few more screws later on, but there's no reason to do that now.
Yeah.
Now, at this point, now we remove this piece of tongue here.
So that's just my filler board right there, but I need that for the other side because I got to flip it
You need it for the
over.
other side.
Yeah, I got to flip it over.
Now he's going to flip this over and put screws on the other side too. Okay, so making sure they're perfectly square. Now the screws that were on this side are now on this side. And this is, so he's going to drop the screws into this side of the 1x6.
Yep.
After squaring up the edges and making sure everything's planar.
Probably come in a little bit.
Once again, avoiding getting too close to the edge.
And avoiding going on top of the other screw.
Yep. Oh, that's right. I hadn't thought about that one. Although it shouldn't quite touch it, right? We tried to size those wood screws so they wouldn't go all the way through.
Yeah.
But you never know.
Yeah, want to offset it a little bit.
Okay, now if you
Now
do
we
this
can
right,
take
we take that
out.
tongue out, and guess what's going to fit in there? Look at that.
All right. So now that this is all assembled, we can take out our filler board right there. And then that's where the wall's going to be fitting in.
Uh-huh.
So we take this over to the observatory here.
This is what we call a facet of the observatory. The design, all carefully laid out by mathematics using Excel spreadsheet, will accommodate up to 8 of these facets, which means it'll roughly be 9.5 feet across from one facet to the other when it's done. And the roof angle, of course, will get lower and lower and lower and lower. That's why we designed it to have a 6-foot roof section. What are you thinking? Starting to look like something now, huh?
Yeah, it's all coming together, and that makes it so we can slide our walls in and out real easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All coming together.
Now, we have finished 4 walls for a rectangle that is not being held together in any way. And we're demonstrating how you could put an ST80, Orion ST80, which is a very short tube telescope, inside just a square observatory. We are not demonstrating how to put the roof on yet because we still have to mount it. But we want to show you the basic idea. And then in a few seconds, we're going to spread this out a little bit and we'll show you how it would turn into a pentagon and larger size observatory for larger scopes. So here we go.